My name is Nam Vu. I'm 34 years old, and I've spent most of my life trying to survive a family that treated me like the weakest link, the expendable youngest son. While my siblings inherited pride, confidence, and every advantage a Tennessee household could offer, I built my life from the crumbs they brushed off the table. A small bakery, long work nights, and a quiet determination not to disappear. I was always the outsider, the overlooked one, the one no one expected to rise high enough to be worth destroying. But last week, lying in a private clinic with a doctor whispering I had 3 days left to live, I learned just how wrong we all were, and how far someone I loved would go to take everything from me. And the moment my husband smiled, I knew something was horribly, unforgivably wrong. The room was white, too white. Even the shadows didn't feel real in that place. Dr. Callahan's voice was soft, almost apologetic. The scans are conclusive, Mr. Vu. It's spreading faster than we expected. You may have 3 days. At most. I blinked once. Then again. 3 days? Outside, the trees barely moved. No wind. No rain. The world kept going. I didn't. Preston stepped in like he'd been waiting for a cue. Clean suit. Loafers without a scuff. That ridiculous gold ring he wore even when baking. His cologne hit before his voice did, citrus and eucalyptus. He came to my side, took my hand. His grip was warm. He kissed my knuckles. Then he smiled. Soft. Calm. Beautiful, even. 3 days, he whispered, so low I almost missed it. Finally, everything's mine. He didn't blink. Didn't even flinch. Then, he kissed my forehead and left the room. I stared at the door for a full minute after it clicked shut. I couldn't feel my chest. Couldn't hear my heartbeat. My body was there, but my brain had already run into the street, screaming. An hour later, a nurse, Jenna, came in with a tray. Special blend from your husband, she chirped. Vitamin cocktail. Helps with pain. She handed me a cup of pills and a smoothie in a steel thermos. I nodded, smiled. She watched me swallow the pills. I let them touch my tongue, then faked a swallow and tucked them in my cheek. She left. I spat them into the sink. The smoothie went straight into the toilet. The color of both made my stomach twist. Too orange. Too controlled. No such thing as coincidence when money's involved, my father once said. Only the slow discovery of intentions. I never believed him. Until now. I searched the drawer of the side table. Found a red folder. Thick with documents. 1 page had my name typed across the top. A life insurance policy. 11 million. Beneficiary. Preston Dillingham. My signature was there. But I'd never signed that. Another paper showed a power of attorney, recently notarized, giving Preston full control of my medical decisions. That signature was mine too. It wasn't my handwriting. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. 3 days. He wanted me dead in 3 days. I pulled my phone from the charger under the bed. No missed calls. No messages. But there it was. A voicemail. Unknown number. I hit play. Static. Then a voice, low, male, intentional. You have 60 hours left. I dropped the phone. That night, Preston returned. He brought soup. Smiled the same way. Asked me if I was feeling stronger. I told him yes. He touched my shoulder, nodded, and looked satisfied. Good, he said. You're going to need your strength. They're transferring you tomorrow morning. Where? A private hospice. Somewhere more peaceful. I kept my face still. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. He left early. Too early. Jenna didn't come back that night. But at 3:42 a.m., my door opened. Not all the way. Just a crack. I held my breath. Someone was there. Just standing. Then the door clicked shut. At 6 a.m., I used the landline beside my bed. I called Zoe Park. Old friend. Former accountant. Still owed me a favor. Zoe, I whispered. I need you to pull everything. Every joint account. every property file, and I need a name for a private investigator. Someone who doesn't ask questions. Pause. Then, what the hell happened to your voice? I'm not dying, I said. But if I don't do something now, someone's going to make sure I do. Silence. Then Zoe, send me the bank details. I'll call you back in an hour. I opened the window. Cold air flooded in. I stared down at the street 3 floors below. Early sunlight painted the sidewalk. A man walked a dog. A trash truck hummed in the distance. Life. Just. Continuing. I shut the window and drew the curtain. Then I opened the mini safe beneath my bed and pulled out the backup phone I'd hidden months ago when we first started merging accounts. It still worked. I texted a number I hadn't touched in years. I need eyes. Someone's trying to kill me. And I think it's my husband. Send. 3 dots appeared. Then a single reply. Already watching. Don't trust anyone. If I have only 3 days left, he's not going to enjoy a second of them. The nurse didn't knock. She walked in like she owned the place. I kept my eyes half closed. Let my chest rise and fall in shallow rhythm. Played weak. Played dying. She hovered over me. Checked the 4. Scribbled something on a clipboard. Her hand paused over the vitals monitor. I counted the seconds. 5, 6, 7. She unplugged the line from the wall, then plugged it back in. A subtle flicker on the screen. She didn't speak. Just smiled. Then she walked out. I waited a beat. 2 more. Then reached for the pill cup she left on the counter. Same pills as before. Different color. Burnt orange. I lifted one. Turned it under the light. Bitter smell. Chemical sharp. People don't notice the small betrayals. That's how the big ones work. Zoe called back at 10:03 a.m. He's bleeding you dry, she said. There are 6 transfers in the past 4 weeks. All to a shell company in the Caymans. Static buzzed under her voice. She was in a parking garage. Wind metal. Someone else passed her, heels on concrete. Who owns the shell? I whispered. Looks like a firm called Calder Holdings, but guess what? That company was set up 3 months after your wedding. And the signatory... She paused. Preston Dillingham. I closed my eyes. People say love is blind, but it's worse than that. Love is deaf, dumb, and on life support, hooked to the same poison you're too afraid to question. The next visit was different. Preston didn't bring soup. He brought a smoothie. Doctor says you need to hydrate, he said, setting it down. Keep your strength up. He leaned in. I could smell the citrus again. You're not going to give up on me now, are you? No, I croaked. He smiled, tapped the metal thermos. Good boy. Then he kissed my temple and left. The moment the door closed, I poured it into the sink. Slow, careful, thick, orange. Again. My hand shook. I looked into the mirror above the sink. I didn't look sick. I looked terrified. And suddenly, I wasn't sure which scared me more, dying or being right. The phone buzzed again. Zoe. Got you someone. XB. Works quiet. Off the books. Name's Garrett O'Neill. Can I trust him? No. But he doesn't like being lied to, and that's the next best thing. She gave me a number. I texted it. 5 words. Need help. Husband wants me dead. The reply came 60 seconds later. Address. Now. That night I stayed awake. The hallway light stayed on. I watched the bottom crack of the door. Watched the flicker of shadows move past. Once. Twice. At 2:14 a.m. it stopped. Silence. Then click. My door unlocked. I held my breath. Didn't move. A figure slipped in. Not Preston. Too tall. Male. Had pulled low. He dropped something on the table. A black envelope. Then slipped out again. No footsteps. Just the quiet snick of the door locking again. Inside the envelope was a USB drive. And a note. Play this when you're alone. and ready. I waited until the morning shift changed, then plugged it into the TV. Footage loaded. Grainy. Surveillance style. The angle showed a different hospital room. Date stamp. 8 months ago. A woman lay in the bed. Pale. Hooked up to monitors. Preston sat beside her, smiling, feeding her something from a thermos. She died 2 days later. The TV flickered off. I sat in silence, then reached for the phone again. Garrett answered on the third ring. Gruff. Quick. You're not crazy, he said. He's done this before. What do you mean? 3 wives. 3 deaths. All natural. All investigated. All closed. And every one of them had a new life insurance policy. My throat closed. He's a ghost in the system, Garrett said, but the kind that learns from every haunting. I looked at the 4 bag dripping beside me. What do I do? There was a pause. Start pretending to die faster. The nurse, Jenna, returned that afternoon, checked my blood pressure, smiled. You're looking tired. Yeah, I rasped. Can barely keep my eyes open. She squeezed my shoulder. The transfer's scheduled for tomorrow. I blinked slow. Hospice. Somewhere quiet. Upstate. She turned to leave. I said, tell Preston thank you. For everything. She looked back. He'll be so relieved to hear that. Zoe called again at 5 p.m. There's a second policy, she said. It kicks in only if you die within 72 hours of diagnosis. I froze. And it's 10 million more than the first. 3 days. 3 days was the clock. Not for my life. For his payday. The sun was setting when I stood at the window. I watched the light bend across the glass, casting my reflection over the world outside. I wasn't looking at the street. I was looking at myself. The man who always stayed silent. The brother who never fought back. The husband who believed in promises. Those 3 days weren't a death sentence. They were a deadline. 3 days isn't my death sentence. It's his countdown. I left the clinic at 2:11 a.m. No nurse. No guard. No Preston. Garrett's contact had slipped me an exit code and a second gown stitched with a tracker jammer in the hem. You're not escaping, he'd told me over a burner call. You're extracting yourself from a crime scene. The air outside slapped me like truth. Cold. Thin. I could taste iron in it. Garrett picked me up in an old Dodge. No questions. No music. Just headlights carving through the dark. In the rearview mirror, his eyes didn't blink. Name one thing you miss about the guy, he said after 20 miles of silence. His cinnamon pancakes. Garrett snorted. Even devils know how to cook. Zoe met us in a motel off Highway 41. Her hair was tied back, her hands full of documents, and her expression was the same one she used when her dad died. Hard, flat, held together by caffeine and grief. You're not dying, she said, handing me a folder. You're being replaced. The first page was a scanned medical report. My report. Only it wasn't. The date was altered. The diagnosis changed. Preston had used a copy of an older CT scan, reversed the signature, and pushed it through a shady lab flagged in a previous Medicaid fraud case. This place doesn't report to state cancer registries, she said. He picked it on purpose. No paper trail. No mandatory filings. Why go this far? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out a second folder. It was black, worn. Inside were pages of names, dates, numbers, handwritten in tight, neat script. It looked like a journal, but it wasn't. It was a ledger. Zoe tapped one entry. Lydia Carr, 2017, heart failure, $2.4 million collected. Confirmed death certificate. No autopsy requested. I stared. That was his second wife. Garrett leaned forward. You sure she's dead? Zoe shook her head. I'm not sure of anything anymore. We drove through the night, south, across county lines. Garrett had found a source, a retired forensic analyst, who flagged a curious thing. Every woman Preston married had signed over medical POA to him within 90 days of marriage. Every one of them had passed within 12 months. And every death happened during a temporary change in residence. Temporary, transitory, easier to vanish a person if the address changes faster than suspicion. Morning bled over the hills as we rolled into a rural corner of Arizona. The town barely had a name, but the woman we met there? She did. Lydia Carr. Alive. Breathing. Scarred. She looked older than her age, but her voice didn't shake. She offered us tea. Poured it slow. I knew someone would find me eventually, she said, watching the steam rise. Guess I was hoping it'd be the cops. Her story came out in pieces. That Preston had slipped something into her vitamin routine. That she started having seizures, memory gaps, blackouts. Then the transfer. Hospice. Same firm. Different name. He tried to kill me, she said, but he wasn't in a rush. He wanted me to fade. Quiet. No questions. Why let you live? She smiled bitter. Because I faked the final collapse. A nurse helped me stage it. There's still a death certificate. Just no body. Garrett muttered something under his breath. What does he want? I asked. She didn't blink. Control. Not just money. He wants the silence that comes after. Back at the car, Garrett handed me a USB drive. It's from Lydia. Audio recordings. Hidden mics she planted near his phone. I plugged it into my laptop. A man's voice came through. Calm. Familiar. I'm not a killer. I'm a gardener. I prune things that don't grow right. Then laughter. Then a name. Zoe. I froze. She knew I whispered. He was thanking her. Zoe walked out of the diner behind us. Face pale. She'd heard it too. I only helped with the accounts, she said, voice hollow. I didn't know what he was doing. Garrett stepped between us. You expect us to believe that. I tried to warn him, she snapped. I corrupted one of the scans. I thought if I slowed it down, Nam would figure it out himself. She looked straight at me. I didn't want you to die. The wind rose between us. No one wants the crash, I said. But they all watched the wreck. We drove back to Tennessee that night. No music. No talking. Garrett dropped me at a storage unit I owned under my mother's maiden name. Inside were old boxes, family records, my father's files, and a gun. Registered. Legal. Untouched since the last time I truly feared someone. I held it for a long time. Then checked the round in the chamber. The phone buzzed. A notification from my home security system. Front door opened. I clicked the feed. Preston stood in the living room. Calm. Composed. He picked up a photo frame of us. Then turned to the camera. You've made this harder than it had to be. The photo Preston held cracked as he turned it slowly in his hand. His thumb stroked the glass, calm, too calm. On camera, he looked like the perfect husband. A grieving man. A man in mourning, maybe even guilt. That was his talent, weaponizing grace. But his eyes never lied. And they were locked on the lens like he knew I was watching. I killed the feed. Garrett stood behind me. You're not going back there alone. I turned. I don't need backup. I need proof. He tossed a flash drive onto the table. You already have it. Lydia's recordings, Zoe's files. What more do you need? Something admissible. Something signed. Something that can't be called circumstantial. He nodded. Then we go to his vault. We arrived at the property by dusk. Preston's family estate in Franklin, Tennessee, a place he'd never let me have keys to. Never shared the code for. Too many memories, he used to say. The hedges were trimmed like soldiers. Spotlights hummed across the lawn, automated. But he wasn't home. We tracked his phone to downtown Nashville, 5 miles out. Give us 12 minutes, Garrett muttered, picking the lock on the side entrance. Inside smelled of lavender and money, the kind of air that makes poor people nervous. The study was exactly how I remembered. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a mahogany desk, 2 leather chairs that had never once felt comfortable. Garrett moved fast. Vaults behind the Hemingway. Classic narcissist move. He pulled the book. The shelf shifted. Metal shimmered behind a false panel. I stepped forward. It had a biometric lock. I need his print, I said. Garrett smirked. Or someone who shares enough DNA. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sample vial. Hair. From Preston's brush. Stolen weeks ago, before any of this started. Sometimes the best lies are the ones you prepare for without knowing why. He pressed it to the scanner. The lock clicked. Inside, rows of folders. Flash drives. A second ledger. And 1 red envelope. I opened it. Inside were photographs. Me. Hooked up to machines. My signature on a DNR form I never signed. Another photo, Preston. In bed. With someone else. Someone familiar. Jenna. The nurse. Pack everything, I said. Garrett didn't ask questions. That's why I kept him close. 10 minutes later, alarms blared. Back doors tripped, he yelled. I ran. No time for elegance. We vaulted the patio railing and slipped into the treeline. Behind us, headlights cut through the dark. Preston's car. Too late. But he wasn't alone. Jenna stepped out with him. They moved like a team. Fussed. Coordinated. No talking. They knew. We didn't go back to the motel. We drove straight to Zoe's apartment. She opened the door barefoot with a Glock in her hand. You're lucky I didn't shoot you. I brought souvenirs. I dumped the files on her kitchen table. She scanned the top page. Her lips pressed thin. Okay, she said. This changes everything. I shook my head. Not yet, but it will. We backed the files up to 3 encrypted drives. 1 went into a safety deposit box under Garrett's alias. 1 stayed with me. And 1 we uploaded to an anonymous whistleblower portal linked to a media firm Preston had sued 2 years ago. They still hated him. Revenge is only righteous when someone else does the dirty work. Midnight. I couldn't sleep. Zoe sat on the couch, scrolling through the photos again. Garrett paced. I don't like this lull, he said. It's too quiet. Zoe looked up. You ever read about the frog in boiling water? He grunted. You turn up the heat slow. They never jump out. She looked at me. You need to make him jump. At 3:04 a.m. I made a call. To Preston. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail. You lied about the cancer. You forged every form. I have the files. You've got 48 hours to confess. Or I make sure every headline in Tennessee spells your name in bold. No threat. Just a countdown. And a war he didn't think I'd survive long enough to start. Garrett called 15 minutes later. I found something. What? Jenna. He sent a photo. Not a hospital ID. A badge. Duh. She's not a nurse, he said. She's undercover. Following Preston for pharmaceutical laundering. She was placed at the clinic 6 months ago. Silence dropped like an axe. She's not your enemy, Nom. I stared at the image. The way she held Preston's arm. The way she looked at him. I whispered. Then why does it look like she's in love with him? Sometimes the real mole isn't the one embedded. It's the one who went rogue. Night had swallowed the old bakery. We slipped inside through the rear door. Glass shards under the mat. The darkness tasted like cold concrete and fear. Zoe held the files tight against her chest. Garrett carried the drives. I shut the door behind us. Click. No lights. Just the hum of the old freezer in the back room. I whispered, this ends tonight. Zoe didn't reply. Her jaw clenched so tight I thought she'd shatter. She had the face of someone who knew too much and couldn't unknow it. We spread the evidence on the stainless steel prep table. Photos, signed policies, legal transfers, one ledger with every name. Dead wives, silent inheritances, shell companies. I pressed record on my phone. Documenting. Backup. Safety and truth. Garrett plugged in OneDrive and opened a folder marked Vault 2025. He flicked through files. See this, he said. A PDF. Preston deeded the bakery property to Calder Holdings yesterday at 4:12 p.m. Signed. Sealed, ready. Once you're gone, the property transfers clean. Zoe's lips parted. He didn't even wait until the funeral. That was when the first headlights flickered outside. Garrett snapped the laptop shut. I exhaled slow. Zoe leaned in, nearly choking. We should leave. I grabbed her arm. Too late. They came at once. A black SUV, dusty tires, engine low. The door kicked open. Footsteps in sequence, too. Fast. Coordinated. I recognized Preston's cologne before the face appeared. Lavender and regret. He held a jerry can in one hand, a pistol in the other. He threw the gas onto the counter, everything soaked. Gas pooled like oil on a storm drain. He wants it all, Zoe whispered. Preston stepped forward. Light from the alley cut across his face, grin wide, eyes sharp. Either you sign off now, he said, voice calm as velvet, or the ash pays the price. Garrett shifted. Quiet. Slow. I backed toward the door. There was a flare of red in Zoe's eyes. Something broke. This isn't what I signed up for, she said. Preston laughed. Regret doesn't buy innocence. He lifted the lighter. Click. The flame jumped to the puddle. The wood caught instantly. The air filled with the scent of burning varnish. Wood. Plastic. Suddenly, everything moved in slow motion. The fire licking up the wall. Zoe screaming, hand over her mouth. Garrett lunging for the pistol. I sprinted for the door, smoke in my lungs. Then, a deafening boom. Glass shattered. The ceiling groaned. Flames roared. In chaos, someone screamed. Not me. Not Zoe. I emerged into the cool night air, coughing, burning, alive. The sky was red above the bakery. A distant siren wailed, mixing with the crack of flame. Garrett pulled Zoe out. Her clothes were ash-ridden. She held a trembling folder, soaked in soot. I looked back. The building bent like a dying thing. I whispered, "Justice never smelled so sweet." Garrett slid a hand over my shoulder. "You did it." I closed my eyes, felt the heat on my face, the ruin behind us. Then my phone buzzed. An anonymous number. I opened the message. A single image. Preston's car. Headlights on. Blocked out license plate. And behind the windshield, a sticky note. 3 words. Not over yet. Flames rose behind me, but Preston wasn't the one who screamed first. Blue lights cut through the windows. Rain hammered the pavement. The burnt bakery still glowed orange in memory. Sirens. Hard. Sharp. Real. I sat in the passenger seat of Garrett's car. Zoe beside me, wrapped in a blanket, eyes wide. She checked the rear-view mirror. Couldn't trust the night. They came for him at 1:27 a.m. DEA agent. 2 state troopers. Backup SUV. Guns drawn. Flashlights slicing through smoke and ash. He stood in the threshold of the charred door, his face wet with soot and anger. Garbage, jerry-rigged fire mufflers, lay behind him, lighter in hand. He raised both. "Drop it," the DEA yelled. He smirked, but the jerry can was empty. He dropped the lighter instead. Clink. Handcuffs. Clips locking. Metal cages. Preston Dillingham, former husband. Former predator. I walked forward. He didn't resist. Only regret. Or was it fear? Add 15 counts, Garrett said, voice thick. Arson. Attempted murder. Fraud. Forgery. Federal extortion. The echo of the charges felt good. I exhaled. No victory sigh, just air. Weeks later, the hearing. Courtroom. Photo walls. Press. Cameras. Everyone. I stood at the podium. The files. The ledger. The faces. The dead women. Names read aloud. One by one. I paused at Lydia Carr, alive. Testifying. Not a ghost this time. The prosecutor's voice was steady. Your Honor, we request immediate seizure of all assets under Calder Holdings, full restitution and maximum sentence. Preston's lawyer stood, mouth dry, eyes flicked to me, to Lydia, to the ledger. But the judge slammed the gavel. Guilty on all counts. Sentence. Life without parole. Outside the courthouse, sunlight, cold, washed out, hit me like truth. I blinked. I exhaled. I tasted hope. Zoe wrapped her arm around me. You did it. You ended his empire. Garrett nodded. Justice is a form of resurrection. I stared at the sky. Drifting clouds. Birds circling. He held my hand and said I had 3 days left, but 3 days were all I needed to end his empire. Months pass. Bakery revived. Low lights. Fresh bread. Early morning heat. Flour dust dancing in the air. I moved slowly now. Watching. Listening. Smiling, not because life is easy, but because I survived. I reconstructed the business. Clean books. Transparent ledger. Rosa, my new manager. She used to clean my house. Now she locks the doors. She holds the keys. She once said, we don't build walls to hide secrets. We build foundations to survive storms. That stuck. One night, closing up. Rain outside. Thunder faint. I locked the front door. Heard a knock at the back window. My heart froze. Flashlight. A figure. Hat low. Rain dripping. Hands pressed on the glass. A message taped. Not over yet. My breath caught. I smiled. Survivors don't wait for storms to pass, I whispered. We learn to dance in the rain.